The Joyful Noise Radio Hour.
Welcome to the Joyful Noise Radio Hour. I am your host, Karl Hofstetter. Tonight we'll be talking with Cedric Noel, who is the most recent addition to the Joyful Noise roster. He and I have a really long, fascinating talk because he is a fascinating person. No one I've ever met has had this amount of life experience. The guy was born in Niger, immediately adopted by a multicultural family, and then he spent his upbringing in no less than 9 countries in 5 continents. It's fucked up. Basically, he didn't live in Antarctica. Anyway, it was a great talk. I think you'll enjoy it. Stick around for that. So, the inadvertent but necessary theme of this episode is the fact that vinyl manufacturing has been significantly delayed worldwide. Most of our records are essentially just caught up in production right now, which is making things very frustrating for us and frustrating for fans. For anyone who doesn't know, there's an insane worldwide delay in vinyl manufacturing. Just a few months ago, it took about 2 months from the time that we submitted the audio and artwork to the manufacturer until the vinyl records actually arrived at our office. And virtually overnight, that timeline extended to between 7 and 9 months. Actually, some manufacturers are even going as long as 12 months right now. It takes less time to make a human being. So tonight, I'm going to let our manufacturer's order queue dictate what we play. I will literally be going down the line of each release caught in manufacturing delays. I'll play my favorite track from that release and tell you exactly how long it's being delayed. And we can all commiserate together and enjoy the music at the same time. Our first artist in the delay queue is Deerhoof. So when we submitted this record for manufacturing, we actually didn't have an album title for this yet. And so the screen I'm looking at right now has the title Feelings Are Okay, which was the sort of placeholder title for the album that became Actually You Can. That's the real title. We submitted the test pressings back on April 15th. It is now August 17th, and the ship date that I'm looking at right now for the records is December 23rd. Jesus fucking Christ. Anyway, this is the first track on the record. It's probably my favorite song. It's called Be Unbridled, O Ye Gates of Hell.
If we only have planted onions, how are these tomatoes all growing? This refrigerator is so well stocked.
Next up on the vinyl delay queue is the Ophelias with their album Crocus. So test pressings for this album were approved back on May 7th, 2021, 40 days ago. Yet on this vinyl manufacturing queue that I'm looking at right now, which is dictating the curation of this radio episode, the artwork line still says awaiting customer approval. They haven't sent us any proofs, so we have no fucking idea when this record's gonna show up. But here's one of my favorite tracks from the album. It's called Vapor.
Lightness spreads over me. Bones made of paper. The moon has been covered. The sky is in vapor. There are no stars here, but your eyes shine reflectors. Some days I wanna cry. Maybe I'm the sugar that you're grinding. Some days you say goodnight. Maybe someday things will be fine.
Okay, next up, Helvetia, Essential Aliens. I can't fucking believe we haven't received this one yet. We approved these test pressings on March 8th of 2021. It's now August 17th. That's 6.5 months. What I'm looking at right now is a manufacturing queue that still just says in production, but the ship date is blank. I don't know if that means that they've shipped it and neglected to send us the tracking, or if they just forgot about it, if they fucking burned the copies, I don't know. No fucking idea. But since this record's already been out digitally for so long, I would rather just play you one of Jason Albertini's new songs from his Sudden Hex project, which is coming out on our Gray Area cassette series soon. So check this one out. Okay, this is perhaps the most infuriating of the batch. SUUNS, The Witness. We submitted this record in November of 2020. That was an eternity ago. The band intentionally wanted to delay this record so that we could potentially get over some of the COVID bullshit and the release date would line up with their tour plans. So we thought, fuck yeah, we will have plenty of time for this one. Nope. The motherfucking cargo boat that the records were on when they were crossing the Atlantic to reach us caught fire. The records were undamaged. However, apparently the government insurance red tape that has to be sorted through after a cargo boat fire, it takes time apparently. That fire happened 60 days ago, and we still don't know when these records are gonna be here. Can't make this shit up. Anyway, here's my favorite track from that record.
One and 1/2 million years I've guided this flame and burnt my eyes, mesmerized, ingrained in my retina. 50,000 generations of lovers entwined, and 1,000,000 years of fossils burning in a pyre, while I'm moving to a future without fire. But how much deeper can I dig? Put out the fire with a tear. Exhume all that's within. I'll give you one more year. Dream a dream, 3 billion dreams. Blow out the flame and close your eyes. Every night we're side by side. 4.5 billion years of radiant light, and the radiant child with eyes burning with desire, moving in a ring of fire. But how much more can I sing until the smoke has cleared? Wipe the ash from your brow and give it one more year. Recognize the sound sheet. Billion patterns, variations on themes, all kind. And you walk this wire, 'cause you know what I mean. When you're stuck between the moon and the morning light.
even though this is a tremendously frustrating time for us, as evidenced by my less than subtle podcast this evening, I want to make clear that I don't blame our vinyl manufacturers or anyone else for the state of things. Our vinyl manufacturers do an incredible job, and they are having their asses handed to them right now, and I think they're doing the best they can. It's just a frustrating situation, most likely due to all the albums that were delayed because of the coronavirus, plus all of the new COVID albums that were written during the lockdown, compounded with the fact that major labels have all of a sudden started realizing that there's money in vinyl, and so they're clogging everything up with the 25th reissue of Michael Jackson Thriller, or whatever. But at the end of the day, even though this is a tremendous annoyance for us, and for you, and for our bands, we're trying to remind ourselves that the entire planet is recovering from a once-in-a-generation pandemic. This is something we'll tell our grandkids about, and maybe we need to just cut each other some slack. This vinyl bottleneck is actually a great indication that music is coming back in full force. To any of our fans out there, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being patient with us and continuing to pre-order records, even though the timelines are so fucking insane, because these pre-orders really are going to keep us going during this time period, and I am eternally grateful for your enduring support. So, one last song before my conversation with Cedric Noel, and this is a new band that I am reluctantly about to submit for vinyl manufacturing. It's called Springtime. This new band features Gaz from Tropical Fuckstorm, Jim White from Dirty 3, and Chris Abrams from The Knicks. This album will be surprise announced pretty soon here, and it'll be released on October 1st. Why would a band called Springtime be released on October 1st? Because it is springtime in Australia. This album is super fucked up. I still don't even really know what to make of it yet. It sounds like Tropical Fuckstorm if they were a lounge band in some alien bar. And the hook for this track includes the phrase, "stoned ape, stone tape," which is a stupid thing I blurted out to Gaz in a business meeting 2 months ago. I don't know how we got off on this tangent, but I was talking to him about the stoned ape theory. I said something about, don't confuse that with the stone tape theory, which stoned ape theory is about how psychedelics might have played a role in our human evolution. Stone tape theory has nothing to do with that. It's a theory about how maybe ghosts are just sort of energy replays that happen based on the material that's around. Anyway, it was an off-the-cuff thing that I said to him, and I was shocked and delighted when he ripped me off for this song.
invaders, narcos, welfare, strangers, and the soothsayers, rumors, wild telltales, deadbeat helpful night and cocktails. Will to power, 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 will to
Thanks for jumping on, dude.
How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
All right. Sorry, am I really dark, like on my screen here?
You could turn up the light
Yeah.
if it's there.
Yeah, but this is all just like my computer screen.
Wait,
it's just my webcam not like deciding what it wants, you know?
Yeah.
Like now I'm dark again, like at
Yeah.
I don't know what
Is
to
this
do.
racist technology?
Yeah, kind of. Just like pretty much.
I mean,
yeah. Oh no, it is for sure. I mean, cameras are made like most cameras are made for lighter skin, so maybe that'll help probably. Sounds like a little.
I was groaning at the whole concept.
Oh yeah.
That's a little better though. I feel like we need a full-on origin story, like a ridiculous degree, because you have such a unique past.
Yeah.
And you've lived in so many places. Yeah, tell me about that. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I mean, I can give you like the spiel because I've said this a lot. So
you can give me the long form if you want.
Yeah, I can make it a bit longer for sure. I usually have it down to like a minute. So I'm just like, let's, you're gonna be bored.
Let's dive in.
Yeah. So I was born in Niger, in West Africa. For people who don't know, I was born in Niamey, the capital, and I was adopted. So my dad is Canadian from Ottawa, born and raised pretty much. It was very simple. And then my mom is a bit more complicated story. She's Indian of origin, but grew up in Mozambique, South Eastern Africa.
Wow. Do you know anything about your birth parents, really?
No, nothing about my dad. My mom gave birth at a hospital and essentially like left me there for a better life. I think that's sort of the assumption. But yeah, so I still to this day cannot remember if my mom is born in Mozambique or like moved there when she was a kid.
How could you even know that? Like what documents?
Sorry. I mean like my adopted mom.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
both of them very interesting. My mom's just like a bit harder to follow because will like just mention things every once in a while and you're like, what? Whereas my dad, when he mentions things, it's also kind of like what, but it's like, oh, I have a bit of more of a frame of reference because I know
right.
Grew up
He's born and raised in Ottawa.
Born and raised in Ottawa. So yeah, there's like a lot for like historical context. There's a lot of Indians in Eastern Africa, especially. So like Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, Uganda. But the part of India where my mom is originally from is Goa, which was colonized by the Portuguese, and Mozambique was also colonized by the Portuguese. So that's kind of how she ended up there. And she was essentially like a freedom fighter against the Portuguese government when in the 70s. And when she left, she had to flee essentially Mozambique, as so the story goes. And when she left, Mozambique was still a colony.
Wow.
It's kind of wild to think about because it wasn't that long ago.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so she fled to Europe, and that's where like it gets hazy. I don't really understand I don't really know what happened in Portugal for her to have to flee.
She's never told you.
No, she'll like make references to things, and they lived there for a while when I was already here, and she just like made references to like, oh, like this is where this happened, or oh my gosh, won't get into the details.
She doesn't want to talk about it, huh?
I think she does. I just think it's like, where do you start with a story like that? Like,
right.
you kind of have to like sit down and do an interview. You can't just have like a conversation.
Yeah. We should have you interview her on this podcast.
Yeah, if she's into it, we'll see. We speak to each other in French though, so it would be
really?
Yeah.
You have to translate.
Yeah, I have to translate. Yeah, so anyway, she ended up at some point in Europe in her late teens, early 20s. She went to university in Belgium and married a Belgian guy that I know, and so she became Belgian. Anyways, she met my dad in Guinea-Bissau, which is in Western Africa, like right on the tip. They were both doing sort of development work. My mom's background, I think, is more law, and then my dad is more economics and agriculture. But they were both doing that, and they met and they got married, and then they wanted to have kids, but my mom couldn't have kids. So they were looking at adoption, and somehow they knew this guy in Niger. His name was Idrissa, and that's my middle name. And he was like, we have some kids here at this orphanage in Niamey, Niger, that are, looking to be adopted. And I was still, a baby. I was like 3 months old or something like that. So yeah, and they chose me. Luckily, there are like 4 kids. There's like a photo that we still have somewhere of like 4 kids. I know, that's really bizarre. But then we lived in Guinea-Bissau after that when I was a baby, and we lived in Senegal, and then we moved to Vietnam.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, in 93, I think. And my sister is adopted from there, so she's originally Vietnamese.
So how old were you then in Vietnam, and do you speak Vietnamese?
I did, apparently, as a baby.
Whoa.
I think that's kind of maybe one of the reasons the language, I'm able to pronounce a lot of things in different languages or names a little bit easier than most people. And I learned Chinese for a year at one point when I was in middle school, and that was a bit easier. Just doing the mouth sounds and having like a good ear for intonation. Anyways, yeah, we lived in Vietnam. My sister's from there, and then I'll just go through the countries quickly. And it's like we lived in Zimbabwe for a couple of years, and then back to Senegal, and then to the Philippines in 99.
Wow.
So it's already the span of like only 5 years. And then we lived there for 4 years, and we moved to Holland, and we lived in The Hague. We lived there for 3 years, moved to Kenya, lived there for 2 years.
And what work were your parents doing at this point?
Still development work. Like they worked for Oxfam and CARE and mostly humanitarian development. And so just have, a 2-3 year contracts somewhere, and then you go, and then you either get another contract and stay, or you look for another job.
So you're in Holland?
Then we moved to Kenya in 2006 or 7. Lived there for 2 years, and then my last year of high school, we lived in Brazil, in Recife, which is like right on the outer tip of, how Brazil kind of like sticks out.
Into the Atlantic.
Atlantic. Yeah, that's where Recife is. It's a small town by Brazil standards, or smaller city by Brazil standards, but it's 4.5 million people.
So much crazy life experience just before you even graduated high school, man.
It felt really normal for us, but obviously, like, I was like aware that it wasn't like the norm. And then I moved to Fredericton, New Brunswick in Canada, which is probably the most random place out of all of them.
Yeah. Why was that?
Well, so I'm Belgian by nationality. When I was adopted, my sister was adopted, the Canadian government wouldn't recognize us as children to my dad because we were adopted. The law has changed since then, but basically, like, if you're, you know, I'm sure it's the same thing in the States. Like, if you're American and your child is born outside of the States, they are automatically American by virtue of their parents being American. And so that was the case for Canadians, but they did not do that for adopted children, which was like very much against like the Geneva Convention for Children's Rights, or basically like we weren't accepted as Canadians. But my mom was Belgian through marriage and then divorced, but still kept her nationality. The Belgians accepted us, like, no questions asked. It's kind of wild. And so we were Belgian our whole lives. And then when we were in Brazil, right before I was applying to universities and stuff, the law had changed in Canada. So we were like doing the paperwork for us to become Canadian, and it made sense for us to go to Canadian universities. I speak a few different languages, but English and French are my main languages, but English is stronger, like, in my opinion, or like I've used it more in scholastic environments. And so I'd wanted to go to school in English. And so Canada just made sense. I wanted to go to Australia, but that was not being accepted. So I went to Fredericton, New Brunswick.
What'd you study there?
Journalism and communications. But yeah, like, played basketball and soccer. It feels like a different life. And then I started playing music there.
So you started playing music in college. You didn't pick up an instrument before that?
I had, like, I wasn't a very confident kid, but I was confident that I was a good athlete, and I was confident that I was, for some reason, I think more confident that I was a good singer. Even though I never sang in front of anybody. I was like, no, I can sing. Like, but I don't know why I had that unencumbered confidence. And now I think about it. But I took piano lessons a bit and then stopped. My sister was much better than me. And the way that music is taught at, like, you know, when you're 10 years old or whatever, isn't very stimulating for somebody who wants to be creative rather than wants to, like, have structure. Yeah. Like, if somebody had been like, oh, if you learn these skills, you can write your own song, it would have probably, like, been more into it. But I sang in a choir.
Was there a first band or a first album that really connected with you and just made you fall in love with music?
I think there are, like, a few stages. I think there's, like, the stage of, like, you listening to your parents' music.
So what music was your parents?
What did we have? We had Tracy Chapman, which now I'm realizing is, like, kind of huge for me now. It was Tracy Chapman, the Beatles, and then Eagle Eye Cherry, which I still like.
That's such a 90s moment.
Sting, not the Police, but Sting.
Sting solo. If I ever lose my faith in you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. No one's ever said that to me after I said Sting.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that from my childhood, seeing that shit on VH1.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I have no context for that music other than in the car or, you know, Youssou N'Dour, which is like Youssou N'Dour and Salif Keita. One is Senegalese, one is Malian. We're listening to them a lot. And then, like, Joe Cocker. Like, it was, like, really, like, no rhyme or stuff. No rhyme or reason. A weird arrangement of things, which I think now, like, if I'm thinking about it now, I'm like, oh, that I understand, like, my head a bit better. But yeah, there was
that's how I got all these diverse sounds, like, naturally feeding into my creative stream.
And like,
cool. What's the second stage, when you, like, adolescence or something?
Like, discovering or learning about stuff that maybe your parents aren't listening to. In Holland, I'd go to the library with my dad, and I would just take CDs and then copy them onto tapes on the same stereo that I still have now, actually.
Hell yeah.
And I mean, it was for sure like Blink-182. I remember listening to that for the first time and being like, "Oh, what? Like you can sing like this?"
Wow. How old are you?
20 or 20. I mean, I'm 29 and 30. I have I have 2 birthdays.
Oh man. How do you? What's the story of your 2 birthdays?
It's very simple. Like when I was adopted, they made a mistake in my papers and they wrote the 21st of July instead of 21st of August. And so right now I'm in between those 2 dates. And so,
Gotcha. So 1 month every year.
Yeah.
You have to explain that when someone
yeah. Or if it's somebody that I'm like, no. If it's just like somebody I'm meeting once and, I'll tell them I'm from Ottawa and that I'm
yeah. I'm not gonna be indulgent.
yeah.
That's funny. So I've got a funny theory about Blink-182 where it's like it feels like it's a generational thing that was like just below like the generation of kids, the grade below me. Like really got into that band, and I was on the other side of it, where I was like, fuck that.
How old are you?
I'm 37.
Oh, okay, yeah, that would make sense. Right on the cusp.
Yeah, it like for me, like I never got into it. They seemed just jokey and dumb to me, like the band Lit or something, But
I don't know that band, but
don't look them up. They're but
yeah.
But I'm not trying to disparage.
No, you can.
Or anyone else that likes them, because there are a lot of people that I've discovered that are like just slightly younger than me, 5 years younger or something, who Blink-182 is like formative for them, and they're amazing musicians, and they've got great taste. So clearly it's like this weird generational line that was like drawn in the sand, and now I'm just the old man yelling at the cloud,
Yeah. I mean, I think that they're a good starter pack for somebody who's in their early teens,
Yeah.
It's a good, totally. I think they're like a good stepping stone to.
For me, that was probably like The Offspring or Green Day, both those bands, Dookie from Green Day and Offspring Smash. Like Offspring was my first show ever.
Oh, whoa.
It was the Smash tour, and it was the last day of school in 4th grade.
but like, yeah, I think it's weird because like now that I have the ability to look back and understand the cultural context of all these bands, I wonder if I would have liked them if I knew what they looked like and did. Like, because I had no idea.
You were just getting the CDs from the library and like dubbing them onto tape, and like
I was listening to them on like
or nothing.
A Walkman, and I remember like the only album I knew of them for probably until I was in university, the self-titled. So like that was it. And I was like, oh, this is very different. But that's all I knew. I think I started to understand maybe what they looked like when I saw like the all the small things video, but I still didn't even understand the joke of that video because I didn't totally understand the cultural significance. But like I knew who like 98 Degrees was and like the Backstreet Boys. Like I don't know. It was like
that was the easier cultural thing to grasp onto, I imagine. And it's got to be weird to be in that situation as a kid, hopping around to all these different countries, and seeing all these different cultures, and then experiencing something like American pop music. It's got to be insane to like contextualize it.
I guess. I mean, and I probably still don't to a certain extent. I don't differentiate music by country at all.
I think that's amazing. It shouldn't be.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to. But I mean, there is like a reason to do it maybe contextually. But yeah, I never did. So I don't know. I just listened to it as I would any other record that my parents would give me or something.
That's awesome.
My high school basketball coach and my economics teacher, the same person, Mr. Curry, he introduced me to everything from like the Distillers to Bad Brains and but then also like Incubus.
That one hasn't aged so well.
But... No, it has not. We'll move on swiftly, I guess, for now. What else was there? Like, there was just
Bad
so
Brains
much.
is a great one though, man.
I mean, I didn't know until a long time after that they were like some of the members were black, or all of them are black. I can't remember.
I think
Like,
they're all black. They're all
yeah,
Jamaican, I think, or Jamaican heritage.
yeah, there was just, I can't remember all the bands that, you know, were from that time, but like the Distillers, I like grabbed onto for a long time. I was like, this Distillers are my favorite band, which again
That's
makes
cool.
it's cool, but makes no sense. But I don't know. I'm curious. I mean, I kind of know a bit about you. I think a while even before we even started talking, I listened to a few interviews with you and stuff because I was like on a big label research bender for like a year. That's like what kept me going when I was at work, and just listening to label interviews. But yeah,
that's interesting. Most artists don't do that. But that totally suits you. You're so purposeful in everything you do.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I'm big into just researching, but I also just genuinely love it. And yeah, so I mean, I know you are a drummer or are a drummer. I don't know where ours. I don't know what the right.
Yeah, it's in between there.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm looking at a drum set I have right here in my office.
Is this? Oh yeah, I want to know. Is this your off? Like, is this at the office or is this at your home?
This is my office.
Okay.
I've got this little like 10 by 10 safe space here.
Yeah.
And then out there, you know, it's the warehouse.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, that's how I started in music, was playing drums. And I still find it like sort of therapeutic.
I mean, I have a bit of a theory because I've been teaching myself drums for the past year, but I wonder if drums are either good or people who have like a tendency to be like heavy thinkers. You strike me as somebody who's thinking a lot all the time, and I wonder if that's like if there's a connection because
I think
I am too, and I am too, and like I feel like having to use all my four limbs, like there's something about that I find very pleasing. Like I'm not somebody who's like into like playing loud or anything, and I think there's also that, but there's something about having to focus on so many different things at the same time that it's like very calming or settling.
Yeah, I think maybe what it does is gets you into a more meditative state where it's like your alpha brainwaves, or whatever. Which I don't know if you ever like researched how your brainwaves change when you're in these sort of different states of consciousness, but when you're in like normal, like us now, it's beta, I think. I don't know. I don't know that much about this shit. But when you are like creating something, you're like painting or like you're in the zone, you know, then that's beta. And then you can get like deeper until you're basically like tripping on DMT, you know, without DMT, but still like that's what happens when your brain gets to that point. But yeah, that's definitely how it feels to me. Drums are absolutely like this meditative exercise and sort of energy expression. It sort of clears your head. It's almost like, I remember I used to work as a dishwasher at a restaurant and I really liked it. And they kept wanting me to be a busboy. And
different vibe.
Yeah, and I was like, kind of like the dish tank back here, you know? Because there was something about the just constant motion and just being in your own head and just being able to like go crazy with your own thoughts. And I think, there's something similar with drums for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I was like trying to find some of the bands that you played in, but I don't know if I was successful.
Okay, so the very first Joyful Noise release was my noise rock band, bass and drum duo called Milk the G649. And which is the most ridiculous, stupid band name ever, but that's how we wanted it at the time.
Yeah, I know, I get it.
And I was 19 when we recorded that record. That on the back of that CD, I made up a fake label name called Joyful Noise, you know, just to lend a sense of legitimacy to that particular record. And it's really weird that is the thing that, you know, became my lifelong art project and career. But that record, I just realized, came out 19 years ago, and I was 19 when I recorded it. So I'm at this weird nexus of like, I've been doing the label now as long as I
You were alive when you
was
recorded.
alive when I recorded the first thing. Yeah. And I was thinking about, it's never been on vinyl, and I was thinking about pressing like 100 copies just for posterity. I don't know.
Why not?
Well, because it's
I'm sure, like,
a
I'm
little
sure,
egocentric.
I mean, yeah, it's like because you're the one, because it's your band. But even to me, like somebody who doesn't know the band, like as a fan of the label, and who doesn't even own vinyl, I would think that would be cool to own. You know, just as like
Yeah.
a team thing, you
We
know?
might do it. I don't know. It hasn't been a high priority for me, but I did listen to it again after like a decade,
Yeah.
and I was really surprised. It felt like we didn't know what the fuck we were doing, and it somehow was coming through us, you know? Especially that first record, because it was all recorded live to tape, and it was all first takes, and there was no overdubbing, and it was just like stream of consciousness shit. Yeah, we didn't really understand the context of what we were doing. We knew we loved, you know, the Melvins and Ornette Coleman. That's about as far as we took it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then something else weird that like drew me back to that band was the other day I was driving and I saw a fucking minivan. Oh yeah, and it's even weirder because I was in my old neighborhood where I lived when I was a kid, which I never would go through there. But I was somehow driving through this neighborhood where it was like basically a block away from my house. And the fucking minivan in front of me has a Milk the G649 sticker on it. And I was like it didn't even register. Like I couldn't figure it out for a minute because we only made 100 of those, I think.
Oh, and then it's like, and it's been whatever.
Yeah, it's been 19 years. We made 100 of these things. Someone has it still on a car, and I somehow end up behind it. It's like the odds of that seem astronomical.
You didn't stop them?
No,
I would have stopped.
What would I do? Like,
I'd be like,
I'm in that.
Yeah.
No, it's just, but it got me thinking. I was like, oh yeah, fuck, that's crazy, that band. And I listened to it again, and I was like, oh shit, that's actually, I'm not embarrassed of this.
Maybe. Oh, that's amazing. That's because
I mean,
I don't know about how people would feel about, you know, a lot of people would feel about stuff they made when they were 19. Be like,
yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't think it's great or anything, but I'm not embarrassed.
Yeah,
it was pretty good for 19-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly.
The band that I was in that was actually like the best band that I was in is Abner Trio. That band is actually really good because it had two amazing songwriters, and I was just backing them up. What's one of the artists that you, like the biggest artist that you discovered before they were big?
Ooh, like the only one that comes to mind, it's like really big, or like big to my standards anyways, is Andy Schaaf.
Yeah.
Like I
love Andy Schaaf, dude.
Okay, yeah.
Can I tell you a story about Andy Schaaf?
For sure, yeah.
So, like a couple of years ago, I don't know how I stumbled across the Andy Schaaf record, and I was just really taken by it and got kind of obsessed with this album, and maybe like one or two albums per year really connect with me.
Yeah.
Aside from the Joyful Noise releases, which all must connect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm saying one or two albums per year that we don't have any affiliation, any ties to. And his was one of them, and I was really, really into it. And
is this the party?
Yes, the party. Okay. I was so into it that I think I was going to try to email him to see if he wanted to do an Almost Live or something like that.
Right, yeah.
And in doing that, in searching my inbox, I realized that I had rejected his demo like 2 years before.
There you go.
And I saw this horrible email thread where, I mean, it wasn't rejecting it based on even listening to it. I was just like, I'm sorry, we're too fucking busy. Like,
well, you wrote back to him, which is kind of
yeah.
I remember.
It wasn't him; it was his manager. But,
okay. Was it John?
No, I think it was before. It was before the party. He didn't send us the party.
Oh yeah, but he
It
sent you
was
like
he sent
demos
us
to
something
it.
like a couple years before that.
Oh, okay, yeah,
And,
gotcha.
I was just too frantically busy to be able to realize how good it was.
But maybe if you had signed him, maybe he doesn't make the party. Maybe he makes a different record that you maybe love as much, but it's not the party.
That's true.
You know, or maybe he makes an even better record. I don't know.
I would like to think he would make an even better record.
But yeah, he missed out.
But I must say that like having new records that I love that really connect with me that aren't on the label is a joy in a way that I like never realized that I needed.
Yeah, I bet.
You know what I mean? Like stuff that I can listen to that I don't have any affiliation with. Because it's tough to like divorce your mind from work mode or whatever.
No, for sure.
So yeah, I don't know. When I saw that email thread and I realized that I had projected the demo of one of my favorite artists like 2 years prior, it was pretty crushing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just goes to show, I mean, being an artist on the other side of that, it's both encouraging and discouraging, you know, to hear. It's like, oh, well, like, you know, obviously everybody gets rejected and stuff. Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of why I got big into like researching labels and stuff, because I was like, man, what makes these people tick? Like, what the hell is going on with these people who are like making these decisions?
Why would you choose this?
Yeah, no, but like, I don't want to be like mean, but I'm just kind of like, you really like, you decided to put this out? Like, really?
I would love to know if you see any horrible mistakes in our like release history.
Well, I don't know if I have that much. I don't think I have a lot of beef with the Joyful Noise catalog because it's a lot of stuff that I don't know, which to me is kind of cool. And most of the stuff that I've listened to on the catalog so far, I've really liked. I feel like there's like 3 categories maybe for me listening wise, or 4. I didn't like it and I thought that it was bad because it just didn't feel honest. I didn't like it because I just didn't connect with it. I didn't like it, but I thought it was really good. And then I connected with it and I loved it.
So hopefully at least everything that we release can reside in the upper 3 categories. Because the not artistically honest thing, like that's my primary focus as a curator is like, and I do not want to fuck around with stuff that isn't honest, you know.
And that's what I like about Joyful Noise, right?
And no one has to love every fucking release.
No,
you know?
Yeah, no,
like
I think
I'm the only one that has to love everyone.
But everything that I've listened to, I've been like, oh, like, you know, all the stuff, because there's bands obviously on the label that I know and really like, but then there are bands that I'd never heard of. Like I'd never heard of L1011 before, and I was like, oh. But then I was just like, how have I not listened to this before?
I know, right?
Like, I didn't know Kishibashi, which is wild to me. And, you know, like, I don't want to, like, diss, like, every person in the music industry or at a label because, you know, like, people are busy and you can only sign so many people. But I just find that, like, there are a lot of artists that not just me think are amazing, but a lot of people just think are amazing. And even people at labels think are amazing. And I'm just like, well, if you think that person's really great, and you're not able to put them out, is it too much for you to be like, hey, the other person at this other label, or like help this person out? I'm just so hell-bent on getting people heard. And I just often find seeing all these great artists get rejected, but then not getting any help when it just takes somebody to just send somebody its email address and be like, I think this person might be into but at the same time, but there is tons of music out there and it's hard sometimes, but
it's hard to sift through, honestly, and it sucks. It's the worst part of my job is listening to amazing demos that I have to reject, you know. And it's part of the reason we started the Church of Noise is so that we could help support some of that stuff that we can't release. Like at least I can submit them for a grant, you know.
No, exactly.
I know it probably sounds very elitist for me to play the victim here, but like it takes a fucking psychological toll, honestly, on me. Like,
I'm
to
sure.
have to like sit there and just like crush people's dreams. You know what I mean? And it's not like I am actually crushing their dreams, but that's how they perceive.
That's how you're feeling.
Yeah, I feel like they're looking to us for like this path forward, and I'm saying sorry, can't do it. You know, even though it's really good.
Yeah, I can definitely empathize with that and or sympathize with that, I should say. But you know, it's cool to hear it from the other end too.
Well, let's play a song, man.
Yeah, let's play a song.
What which song do you want to play first?
Let's play "Come You."
First track from the record. What do you have to say about this song? Is there any I don't know, is there any special story behind this?
It's probably one of the first songs I wrote for the record. I would say it's the first song on the album. I mean, I wrote it on a keyboard, just like with a progressing chord, starting off with the first note in the triad and then adding the third and the fifth. Yeah, I just really wanted a song with at least 2 drum parts on it, and I think there are 5 percussion parts on it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I wrote them, and then Liam, who played on the record.
Liam from SUUNS.
SUUNS, just went for it. And I remember at one point I was in the room with him, and he was just like, I was just like cheering him on, and then I think he's just like, I need you to leave. So focus. And I was like, I'm gonna leave you. To me, it seems like a very natural drum part, but I'm for people who aren't in my head, it definitely is weird. But
that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's listen to it. Here it is. Come You. Dude, this record is it's a slow burn.
Yeah.
At least it was for me. When I first heard it, I didn't quite know what to make of it at first. I don't know, I still can't really pinpoint what it was that was kind of perplexing to me about it.
Right.
But I think at first listen, it feels like there's a lot of different sort of genres happening, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see how they're connected until you get like maybe 3 listens in, you know? And at least for me, like when I heard it maybe the third or fourth time, I was like this is all really purposeful and intentional, and it makes total sense, and it's really amazing.
Well, thanks. That's really interesting to hear. No one said that to me before, but I think that makes a lot of sense.
Like that song that we just heard is one of the more I don't know, upbeat tracks on the record. And, like that could even, some people might describe that as like power pop or something, which is so different. Or at least some of the tracks on the record, I think, could reasonably be described as power pop, and that's so different than than tracks like Allies or Dove.
Yeah, that's
man, like peaks and valleys. Extreme peaks and valleys. Another thing that you do that I find really interesting is that, like, and I'm curious what your sort of method is here, but a lot of the tracks on the record, you basically seem to like hone in on like one theme that you sort of like build on, and you avoid this like verse chorus verse structure, which I think is interesting, and it's not something that I even immediately sort of realized. I guess I'm curious if that was an intentional decision on your part to avoid that sort of traditional structure, or was that just how the music came out?
I think there, like, some songs definitely have choruses on them.
Sure, but some songs that like
but sometimes
is the chorus.
No, exactly. Yeah. Just for the people, so they aren't misled. They're like, tons of choruses on this thing. What is he talking about?
No, it's a catchy ass record. It's probably one of the most like I don't know, user friendly albums we've in a long time.
Yeah.
So buy it.
I think I generally just sit down and play something, and that's the song. Like words and a lot of the time.
Really?
Yeah. Like
you sit down with a guitar, with an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And the words and the notes come out at you at the same time.
Yeah. There's like,
that's fucked up, man.
I mean, it doesn't always have cool results, or good results. But my friend James, who's a musician and also organizes a festival here in Montreal, we met years ago, and he said to me recently, he's like, Cedric, like when I met you like an improviser and like an experimental artist, and I still am that, but I guess the material that people are more familiar with is like more of the singer-songwriter variety. But I always forget that the roots of my fascination with music are from an improvisatory standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've just kind of always improvised. And so to me, songwriting kind of has always been like that. And
all the songs start off as improvisations.
Well, all the songs are just an improvisation, really. There are some songs, like I think I remember Headspace and Nighttime. I wrote those with the purpose of writing a song. At that point, I had probably 20 songs. I was like, oh, I need like a rock song here and a rock song there. And like those, I went in and was like, these need to have like a verse chorus kind of feel. But most of the songs are just like, I'll just sit down and I'll often feel just like a welling up of something and be like, okay, like it's time to write.
Yeah.
And it's always when I'm the most stressed out of my mind. Usually.
Really?
Like it's always like work is crazy. Like I have to like record a bunch of things for people. It's always like the most inconvenient time. That's when like,
wow.
And sometimes it's
when the spirit inspiration comes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to, touch this subject, and we don't have to if you don't want. I'm just curious if you've experienced any overt racism in the music industry.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yes. It's like not even close. And there's there's a difference also between overt and like sort of like what you can presume is
like
on your
like
life or
unconscious racism is a different thing. Not to say it's excusable, but it's
but not even like unconscious, but just like you you're not sure why somebody made a decision, even though they might, you know. Luckily for me in the music stuff, I don't think there's really been any like violent stuff or anything. Maybe like at shows, like somebody's been weird or something. But I remember we're at a show on Prince Edward Island. I was in a band called Redwood Fields, which is like 2012 or something. And we just played a show at one of the venues in Charlottetown in the capital. And this guy was talking to, I think it was either to my bandmate or we were like within earshot, but he was like, and like, to me, it's like, I don't know, because I imagine my bandmate saying this to me, it's just like more funny than it is serious, but it is very serious. But he was basically like, I see this like black guy trying to indie it up, you know, and I don't like it, you know. I was just like, but it took me forever to even like understand the severity of a comment like that, you know. But it was just but at the time it was just more like, I think I just like brushed it off because I was just like, what is he talking like?
Had to. I mean,
well, I think
imagine that one has to a lot.
Yeah.
You have to brush it off a lot in order to just fucking exist, right?
Yeah, but I think I was lucky that I was like confident in that what I thought that what I was doing was good. So I didn't need that validation. I think that's why I feel lucky that I was able to find music at the time that I did, because I really don't feel like I need an external validation of any kind. I'm just like, I make music so I can listen to it. Like I listen to my music.
Yeah.
And I'm like, try production things because I want to hear this or I want to hear that or whatever. So I was just kind of like, okay, like whatever, dude. I'm never gonna see you again. Like I don't know who you are. But I think
equated ideas about what indie rock is.
Yeah, but I think like the more like the stuff that just like is that you like, that stuff I don't like carry with me other than it's like a ridiculous story. The stuff that like feels harsh that I've talked to other folks about is just like how hard it is to be whatever marginalized group you identify with, or groups that you identify with, how hard it is to just be like taken seriously or just to be accepted. Like that like feels like it's just like
to not be like just pigeonholed.
Not even like pigeonholed, but just like even like somebody opening the door, like the door being open for you, you know. And I think it was like, I'm glad that I came to Montreal and was able to find the scene of people that I did here. And like actually when I met Jess from Joyful Noise, like we were at like at this like label session or whatever online, and there was a guy from Manitoba, a black guy from Manitoba, talking about what, you know, like how does like A, I'm in Manitoba, and B, I'm black, like how the hell am I gonna get heard by like, you know, whatever label or whatever booker or whatever. And I think that's like the big frustration, just like take this person seriously, because independent of who they are, because the stuff they're making is really good, you know.
Do you think it's just like unfamiliarity with people in this you know, indie rock world or whatever, mostly dealing with white people? Do you think they're just like a little scared to deal with, or not scared, but like, do you think they're just like unfamiliar with it? Is it like innocent unfamiliarity, or is it like blatant sort of boxing out?
I think it's both. You know, we're talking about like lack of maybe exploration with the music industry, and I think it's a lot of that. It's just a lot of like not being able to understand a lot of,
and not being willing to try.
Yeah, one of my favorite records of this year is a record by Lorraine, I think is how you pronounce it. It's L''RAIN. And her record is really cool, but it's just jazz and indie and like it's just everything ambient in one record, and it's amazing. And I think it was with her that I found maybe an article about, or I think she wrote about how in this case black music isn't understood as experimental music, and there's just like that gap of there's like a gap of knowledge of like history, you know, of just like what is, because we all
Black
understand.
music is the most
Yeah, in many ways. So we have a way to contextualize, like, maybe a white ambient experimental artist,
Right.
because we know the history, we know the lineage, but we don't necessarily know the lineage of somebody, of a different race or different culture, and like where that what brought them to there, because it's just like when you listen to something you have no context for, you're like, whoa, okay, like,
Right. Yeah. I
where
mean,
is it coming from?
and
So
that's
there's
part of our job, I think, as a label, is to contextualize things.
yeah,
And I get that it's maybe more challenging to contextualize,
Yeah.
a Black experimental artist, but it's also more important to do that.
And labels have different modes of operating, and venues have different modes of operating. Like some people are just supremely focused on finding art and art that they like and art that they connect with, or art that they want to promote too, that they may not fully understand. And that's kind of where I gravitate towards.
Yeah, for
A
sure.
lot of the time. But a lot of people that's not their goal in the music industry. That's like,
They're just trying to either make money for profit or just make money to survive.
Yeah. And then the third maybe is like they like the music they like, and like that's where they stand, and that's the music they put out.
Do you feel like it's gotten better since Black Lives Matter became forefront and everything?
I don't know if bad, it's improved. Yeah, I don't know about using better as a word, but like things are definitely like
it's at least in the discourse.
Yes. I'm just like I'm just a bit afraid maybe that it just has its moment and then it goes back to normal, but it felt like maybe a big of a shock in the system. I mean, I'll say this, like whenever Bandcamp Day was in June, so whatever that week was, that day I ended up making more sales on Bandcamp in one day than I had in 10 years.
Fuck. That's amazing.
In 10 years. It's amazing, but it also made me really sad.
Yeah.
Because
it took this to...
Yeah. And this year I've had the most like whatever, I don't want to say like successful because I don't know what that means, but like the most people have heard my music this year than any other year. And I didn't play a single show. Right.
It's awesome. I mean,
which is awesome, but it felt really heavy because I was just like, wow, it took this to like get people to care about just like this art, like and that was a similar, I've talked with a lot of other Black musicians, and I'm sure it's the case has been with like other practices too, art practices, but like it's been the case for everybody, and it's great to see, but it's also just like, whoa, like that's what it took. It's like really crazy. And so I think it just takes a second, or probably going to take a couple of years for me to like recalibrate a little bit and be like, oh, okay, this is a good thing. Totally.
Yeah, it is. It's sad that that's what it took.
Yeah.
But it seems like a move forward.
It has been a huge step forward. Hopefully more like Black and POC, like, or by POC, experimental ambient artists and stuff like that. That's like, I want to see more of that. There are a lot already, but I don't know, that's my favorite world of music is experimental music. I think it's the one with the most like humility because nobody comes to the shows.
I get it. I've been to and played a bunch of those.
I'm sure.
Hey, let's listen to this other song. We're gonna play Dove now?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
So this is a leak. So when this episode comes out, Come You probably would have been released, but this one will not. This is one of my favorite tracks on the record. It's super simple, and I don't know, man, there's something about it that it's almost like a children's song.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, the melody is very much like a nursery rhyme.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. It really connected with me. I hope not, only because I have a 2-year-old daughter and I'm listening to children's music all the time.
Oh, maybe. I mean, I'll take that. The fact that anybody likes that song is cool. I mean, that song is from 2012 or 11. It had a very, very, very bad chorus attached to it. Like a very, very bad chorus.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know what made me take another. I would always listen to it every once in a while because I liked the melody, but it was a rock song. And then I just played it on my sister's like tiny acoustic classical one day, and I was like, oh, this kind of sounds cool. And then I just thought that that part would be enough.
Yeah.
But it's still funny to me. To me, it's like kind of like a throwaway song. Like it's just a song that like needed to go somewhere, and it just ended up here.
I can see how you'd say that, but I also think you sort of struck gold with it.
Well, great. I'll take that.
Let's listen to it. Here's Dove. That's gonna be your song that's like in a fucking Apple commercial, dude.
I mean,
Or,
we'll cross
like,
that bridge.
or like a Wes Anderson film.
Maybe I'll take that over.
So good.
Yeah. I mean, now I can only hear the nursery. Which is even better now.
Yeah.
The bands that I consider my biggest inspirations, most times people do not hear it at all.
What are those bands?
I mean, the big band that like I've kept it quiet because like I feel like people really don't like this band, but I think they're kind of misunderstood in a way. But nobody needs to feel sorry for them at the same time, is Fleet Foxes.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. And I actually had a conversation with somebody a while ago, and I convinced them to re-listen to a record, and they love it. Not just love it like it's nostalgic. No, like I love it. The third record that they made, I think got a ton of press, but like didn't, I think, reach the ears of the people who actually maybe would like it for what it is, because they took a bunch of years off and then they put out a record 2017, I think, called Crack Up. You know, it's like very heady, very complex, very... The new record that they put out last year is great too, but this one for me, it's just like a benchmark of something to achieve.
Oh, so their like return album was the one that you really love.
Yeah, and it's the one that I think is the least liked among
Gotcha.
because it's just kind of obviously jazz inspired, but like lyrically it's pretty right interesting. And
I've never given that band a chance, to be honest.
That's perfect. Then you're fresh meat for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, another one is like Blood Orange, which
I've never heard Blood Orange.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I don't know why I should say that, but like,
no, I mean, like it.
I think I think there's something
People
in
always
it.
expect, label dude to have heard all music in the world, but
No, I'm kidding. But you know Blood Orange.
I've heard the name.
Okay.
I so rarely listen to music that is not a part of the label because it's like all my time is spent listening to music that I'm working on.
And you put
It's
a lot
like
of stuff.
there's not much time to like hear shit outside of that. So
Yeah.
I've got crazy blind spots.
No. I mean, likewise. I feel like if you were somebody who knew of Blood Orange, like as the musical project, like you probably would have listened to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or to him. And Blood Orange has had weird iterations. He's kind of just been building up to something each time. And then he also does classical composing and stuff like that as well. Like he's like fully multifaceted and is a director and is a dancer. And
wow.
So I find that super inspiring. It's like
Yeah.
another Black person in the same essentially generation. And he's also not American. He's not Black American, which, that's a whole conversation. But like,
yeah,
I've realized I don't vibe. Like,
right. That's a different.
we don't like. I don't totally connect with Black Americans all the time. Like there is like some friction there, or not friction, but just misunderstanding. And so there's just a lot about him that I can relate to. And he's not a good technical singer, but there's something about his voice that is just interesting.
Yeah, that's never bothered me.
No, but it bothers a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like about his music.
That's probably that's a plus in my book. Yeah. We've got several artists on the label who have very unique voices, and they belt their fucking hearts out, and it's amazing as soon as you get used to it.
Yeah. The thing I find interesting about him is that he doesn't have like the strongest voice, but he's trying like Beyonce and Mariah Carey runs.
Whoa.
So it's just like
trying to do like
yeah. He's like, but it doesn't like quite. He doesn't quite pull it off, but it's like enough that you like understand,
Whoa.
So I don't know,
That's
but
fun.
yeah,
like
he's obviously like an amazing musician. So obviously has a good enough ear to hear that he's like not quite hitting the notes, but there's just something about the attempt that I'm like, yeah, man.
Oh yeah, dude, absolutely. The best example of that on our roster is Tim Kinsella, man. I don't know if you've ever spent any time with Joan of Arc or Cap'n Jazz.
I actually watched that documentary.
Oh yeah, the Vice one.
Yeah, because I had no frame. Like the only thing I knew about Kinsella was like through the American football dudes. And even that band, like I think it was through them that I got into that, and I was like, oh shit, this guy's on Joyful Noise. Like that's awesome. He's great.
Like this label might not exist without Tim or Joan of Arc. The release that I point back to as sort of the beginning of the real energy we got, was this cassette box that we did from them. But anyway, what like his voice, a lot of people would say that he has a bad voice, or he can't sing or something, but he belts it out, and it has so much passion that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I'd actually say he has a great voice.
I think that too. I mean, like now, but it takes you a little while to get used to it. And I would say it takes a little while to get used to his written music too, like his. I remember first hearing that was one of those bands we touched on earlier, like the bands that you first hear and you don't know if you should hate them or love them.
Yeah.
That was absolutely my experience with. It was actually Make Believe. It's like a Joan of Arc side project.
Okay.
But I remember hearing it randomly on this like, the fuck was it called? LimeWire or something like that. It was.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
It's like streaming.
Yeah, no, I remember one. I can see the logo, like the green and yellow. Yeah, for sure.
It just like popped up on there, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Like I had like a physical like reaction to it, and I was like, "I don't know if this is terrible. Like I want to hate it, and I don't know why." You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, is this really, really, really fucking good or really terrible? I don't know. And it took me a long time to figure it out, but it's really good.
Yeah, but that's the best when you have like a very visceral reaction to like music. I'm trying to think if there's been a band that I've had like a really bad reaction to. That
There
is,
are a few bands that I just fucking hate.
I'd love to know this list.
Too long to go through on this podcast, but here's a funny story. Let's see. Before Jess worked at Joyful Noise, she worked at a booking agency in Amsterdam at Belmont Bookings, and I visited her several times, visiting for the night or whatever. And oh Jesus, now I'm blanking on his name. What the fuck is that guy? He was just on like Tucker Carlson.
Oh, Ariel Pink.
Ariel. Yes. She worked at this booking agency, and one of her clients playing that night was Ariel Pink. And we went to see this show, and we could hardly get in. It was a small club, and basically only just sort of stand at the back and look. But that's one of those where I had this very like visceral reaction that was really negative. And it never turned positive.
Yeah.
It was just a straight up like, fuck this. This is awful. I don't even understand everything that's awful about it, but I know it is in my bones, you know? That's how I felt about it when I saw it. I was just like, this is bullshit. This is terrible, terrible bullshit. I knew nothing about his politics or anything at the time.
Yeah,
you know,
but it was enough. The music was enough.
Yeah, the music just felt totally disingenuous, and predatory is too strong a word, but there's something there's something in between there.
Yeah, right. I don't know why this is reminding me of this show that was playing bass for somebody, and we were playing in Toronto. But then the lead singer got up on the subwoofer, just like started pointing at people, and just like pointed right at me, and then came right at me in the middle of the song and started singing. I was like, what is happening right now? I want to leave.
Was he singling you out? Were you the only black guy there?
No, okay, he was also black.
Oh,
important part of the story, I guess now. Yeah, important to no. It was totally like out of like just for the show. Yeah. Like he was.
Yeah.
Like I think he thought maybe like a delegate was there or something. You know, like somebody important. But I was just like, what is?
Dude, I know, man. Like sometimes. Okay, you ever heard of this band Monotonics?
No, I'm about to
look them up online. All right, so we work with Jonathan Gatt, who's the guitarist.
Yeah,
was the guitarist of Monotonics. They're an Israeli band. They are the most insane band I've ever seen live, by far. And I've seen them many times, or I saw them many times. They toured for like 2 or 3 years solid, like 300 days a year. And it was the most uncomfortable but amazing shit. Like you couldn't be in the room and not get like beer or blood on you. And it was the only time I've ever seen like a drummer crowd surf, like with his drum kit. Jonathan would like, they choreographed this shit.
Yeah, right.
They would like go out into the crowd, and like he would end up on top of the bar in whatever tiny club they were playing. It was just absolute mayhem, and they would always end up outside the venue.
Yeah,
it was insane. Every time I saw them, I would keep like a clear like eye on the door, and I would stick pretty close to the door because I was like, this is about to become like a complete, like I'm about to die.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna run. I'm not dying this way.
I've had that at a show, not as a spectator, but as a musician, and had nowhere to run.
Oh no!
It was like, but it was simultaneously the most fun and the most terrifying show I've ever played.
Yeah,
it was in a house. Like the deck had broken earlier that night because too many people had been on it, and the band before us, people were just like jumping up and down, and so the floor had like quite a give to it, but it was like doing okay. It was like just totally packed house, And then we started playing. The band I was playing in was like post-punky math, but kind of like women. I don't know how to describe it, but it was like a lot of starts and stops. But people were jumping up so much that I think the floor had like 2 inches of give, 3 inches of give.
Oh my god!
And so I felt
like a trampoline. That's insane.
Yeah, no, it like felt like a trampoline, and you couldn't hear any. Obviously, couldn't hear. It was wild, but it was super fun, but terrifying. Because
yeah.
I don't know if we would have died if the floor had come, but like it definitely would have been
injured.
really bad. Yeah.
Jesus. House shows. I miss them. There was this house in Indianapolis that was called The Secret Location, where I lived for a long time when I was in college, and actually like the first sorta office for Joyful Noise was in that house. It was in a closet in that house where I just stored the CDs that I had made from my friends' bands at the time. But anyway, that house, like we had tons of amazing fucking shows there. Crazy huge bands would tour through and play there. It was not quite that extreme in terms of like the entire house giving out. But there were times where it was like, holy shit, this is not safe.
Yeah.
I kind of miss house shows.
I like house shows,
but I can't go there anymore. I'm too fucking old, man.
I think there is definitely a weirder energy, or a weird energy if there's like somebody like that's much older than the crowd that's there. But I think the way to maybe go about that is to just genuinely friendly, and because I think if like you feel weird, that people will like, in any situation, people will like feel that.
So I shouldn't put on like a backwards baseball cap and a skateboard and be like, hey kids.
I mean, maybe.
I don't know. It's also a little weird because it feels like I can't go to a show without people thinking
that you're
that I'm there to like scout something. You know what I mean?
No, for 100%. Yes.
Anyway, let's play fucking Headspace.
Yeah.
What do you want to say about this song?
I like that there's a lot of feedback on this song. I don't know. I just think it's
for you to have feedback, right?
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, like feedback's not. Well, like drone tones are normal.
No, I think there's definitely songs in the past that like I remember one review I got, somebody thought that I made a mistake of leaving in feedback during the chorus of the song when it was actually intended to.
That's awesome. When one of the most formative albums to me was Nirvana in Utero.
Yeah.
And when I first got it, I totally thought there was something wrong with my CD because like there's so much feedback.
Yeah. It's like weird but also cool because we don't know each other that well yet. But like I have rock projects in the past that are just really heavy and have a lot of feedback. And
yeah.
So to me, I'm kind of like, yeah, this is like par for the course.
All right. Here it is.
Are you still awake?
got a bunch of rockers on this record and a bunch of like super stripped down, like introverted kind of songs. It's an interesting record for that reason. It's also a challenge for us to like promote the record because when we play a song just like that, it's really not getting across the whole point.
Not at all. I mean, I thought that that's what a record was.
Yeah, it should be. It sucks that we have to jump through these hoops to like,
Yeah, but for sure. But like, sorry, I didn't even mean like conceptually. Like, I think that's like what I understood. Records to always be like the records that I listen to, but
that's what I love about you and about music in general too. It's like this. You gotta have peaks and valleys, man.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing without comparisons.
Maybe you're the same way, but I do get bored pretty quickly. I think like when I think of sequencing, I think of the listener. If it's just too many rock songs in a row, like it's gonna that's like
sequencing is something that I get like I just nerd out about.
Same.
This was a record where when you sent it to us, it was just a little bit too long to fit onto a single LP. So that was one of the first conversations that we had to have is like, hey, do you want to trim this down or do you want to release an EP? Do you want to separate this into like an LP and an EP? Because we didn't think that it was wise to release a double LP right out of the gate.
Which I think is
considering the vinyl manufacturing situation, that's even more wise. But luckily, you weren't insisting upon a double LP. You were down to sort of work with us to trim it down to single LP length. But I mean, we had to cut some like amazing songs. It sucks. One of them will play last year, though.
Yeah. I mean, I think we met at the right time for that because I'd had this conversation with other friends who also had to cut their records down from a couple songs, and I was like, I'm never doing that. Like, I remember talking to people who would be like, I would never do that. Don't you let them. Like, fuck them. I mean, I still do believe that because of the advent of the internet and being able to release your music digitally, the album is now can be in so many different forms, and so to cut it down for one medium of listening to music is a big decision.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think I just been worn down after a year of just listening to this record, and I felt like less precious about it and was down to make that decision. The thing that flipped it for me was you're just talking prices, and you were like, oh, it costs. Because I obviously I knew that manufacturing a double LP would cost so much more, but at the same time, I hadn't thought of the person buying it and how much that would cost. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm never going to do that to somebody.
Right.
Like, I don't know if I would buy this record for $46 or $50, whatever.
Right.
Especially when it's just over a full LP. Like, it's not even like a double LP, really. Like, it's just a couple songs over. So that's what did it for me. I was like, yeah, no.
I mean, that's a good reason. I echo your idea that like the LP is one format. It doesn't need to dictate like how we sculpt music, but it's a good format for helping us sculpt. Like, it's a good template. I find it to be a really good way to help to craft an album. One beginning song and one end song on side A that's like about 15 to 20 minutes, and then one beginning song, one end song on side B, it's about 15 to 20 minutes. That sequence, that's like the fucking hero's journey or something.
Yeah.
Like, that shit is like, that's like ingrained in humanity.
That I totally agree with. And even if I'm not thinking about vinyl, I'm still framing it in that way.
Exactly.
Because I didn't make this record really thinking about vinyl. But now that it's like in my thought process, I understand it as a limitation in a positive way, like like kind of structure it. So like the next few things that are in my mind, I'm like, oh, okay, like this is the time that I have to work with, and if I want it to be on vinyl, these are the choices I need to make.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you don't want it to be on vinyl, or even if your vinyl comes out 6 months later, like most artists are going through right now. Like, it's a good framework, man, for the listener. It makes it way more engaging. There are There are too many great records that are too fucking long, man.
I think I like the challenge. I think I maybe it's like the athlete in me or something, but I agree that like the LP length is perfect for most albums.
For like attention span. Yeah.
But yes, but there is just something about like when I see a long record, I'm like, dude,
yeah,
you don't have to make a big piece of work each time, but you just like did this like massive thing, like you wrote your trilogy or something, but it has to be good.
It's funny how the album length standards, it was LP length for ages, the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
And then in the 90s, it briefly became 70 minutes.
With who? I don't have a frame of reference.
Because CDs
right.
took over as the only format during that era. And there are some really great records that are like sculpted to that length. Some that come to mind are like Beck Mutations, or even like Radiohead, OK Computer. That is made for a CD.
Is it a 60-minute? 50-minute?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just pulling that.
I actually, I don't really know Radiohead super well, but I did listen to OK Computer in full recently. And it was kind of long.
Yeah, kind of long, dude. It's pretty long, and like Spiritualized is one that I remember really loving, and it being like sort of that like CD era. All the Beck shit. Oh yeah, and then the fucking Zero tracks. Man, that's something that's like gotten totally lost.
Zero tracks? I don't know what that is.
Do you not know about this? The best example I can think of is like on Beck's Midnight Vultures record. Do you ever listen to that album?
No, I really don't know Beck at all. Like, I know that
he was great. It's really sad how he's just like immediately faded into mediocrity. But like, dude, Midnight Vultures, Odelay, and Mutations in particular.
Okay. My only frame of reference for like Beck for a long time was that he produced a Stephen Malkmus and the Jigs record.
Well, okay, so this zero track thing, it's hard to describe if you're not looking at a CD player, which don't really exist anymore. You're going from track 2 to track 3, okay? And instead of it going from, let's say track 2 ends at 3 minutes, 55 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's like counting up, right? Instead of it going straight to like 0 and then counting up in track 3, it goes to negative 38 and it starts playing some weird shit and it counts down. It counts 38, 37, 36, 35, 34. You know what I'm saying? And it's this weird intro that's like laced into the format. But if you skip directly to that song, you don't hear it.
Weird.
If you go straight to track 3, you don't hear the intro. But you only hear it if you listen to track 2 and then let it carry over into track 3.
Interesting.
That is an awesome like aspect of the CD format that is totally lost now.
I don't remember this. I don't know where I would have encountered this. That's really cool.
That I don't know. Buy the Midnight Vultures CD eBay or something. And then you can also do zero tracks before a record, so like hidden songs, where like if you put in the CD and press play and then push back, like you can go.
Oh, and, like, I'm gonna try that.
So the last Milk the G649 record we did
that. Nice. I mean, I have a lot of CDs. If I was in the living room, like I'm probably the only person in my friend group that has like, I probably have like 50 CDs.
What?
CDs.
Really?
Like my parents had a ton, probably still do. I don't know where they are. And then, so I took some. And then for a long time, I was still buying CDs because I didn't have vinyl. and I had a CD player, and then I just switched to just buying tapes because I like tapes more. But
It's a lost art.
yeah, I mean, I love just a hidden track anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another thing of that CD era where it would the hidden song where you just like
Yeah.
the album would end and then there'd be like all this silence and then
Yeah. I wanted to do that on Hangtime actually. But
there are other ways that you can do hidden tracks on vinyl though. You can interlace the audio, you know, on the final track or on any track really, to where like you have to like pick up the needle and put it on like the very next groove and it'll play a completely different song.
That's wild.
We've done that a bunch, and the other thing that we've done, like, which is kind of has the same vibe as like a CD hidden song, where we'll do like the album will end, it'll be a locked groove, but then there's another song right after it on the record, and you have to physically pick up the needle, put it on the next song, to play the interior grooves of that record.
Well, I'll think about that for the future.
Yeah, next album. How long did you record and release your own shit before we started working together? Like 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think more like just production over anything. I think like I'm proud of the songs for that time. You know, I don't know if I play any of them anymore, but it's rare that I play songs that are out in the world. And that's changing the last like 3-4 years, but for a long time I just would never play stuff I released. I was like, I've grown up a bit. started to learn how to play songs.
Hopefully people will start to come see you live who are expecting to hear this record.
They'll hear the songs. I'm not gonna like I hope to like revisit some of the songs though, like and do a different version of a bunch of older songs at some point too. It'd be fun, but like very
awesome. So why don't we let's play this last song to lead us out. So this is Gisty, which is an outtake from the record that we talked about. Like this is one of my favorites, by the way. This is one that I was voting not to cut.
I know. Sorry.
It's all right. Yeah. But luckily it is the bonus flexi that is included in the VIP vinyl edition. So at least people get it that way. Anything you want to say about this song, Cedric?
Wrote on the piano, like the piano that my family had for like 10 years. I think we had it in the Philippines, Holland, Kenya, Brazil, and Canada. And it's like a big piano, not a grand piano, but like just a big upright piano. So yeah, felt that like I was just thinking. I just rethought that now, but yeah, that we don't have that piano anymore. But that's like maybe one of the last things I wrote on it, probably. So that's a cool tidbit for me to remember. I don't know. I really like the song, and I felt really bad about cutting it. I think it'll be out in some other form.
Yeah,
hopefully at some point,
including this one on the podcast.
Yeah. Well, it's out now. Yeah.
Right on, man. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time, dude.
Thank you.
It's been great to talk to you and get to know you a little better now that you're part of the whole Joyful Noise family.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, here is just the
inside a world in your eyes.
Thanks for listening to the Joyful Noise Radio Hour.